Thanks a lot, and I will give the floor to Mr. Alex Serrano, who is sitting on our executive committee in the ICADP, to kick off officially this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia, and good day from Washington, D.C. I'm a Senior Vice President here with NCBA-CLUSA. For some of you who may not know NCBA, we're an apex trade association for U.S. cooperatives, but we also work around the world, like many of us here. So very happy to be here. I'm a member of the executive committee, along with my colleagues, Anders and Francesca. Anders is from Sweden, and Francesca is from Italy. So we're very pleased to welcome you for this learning opportunity. Last year, as you know, we started a series that was about sharing what each CDO, Cooperative Development Organization, does. We were very impressed with the depth and the outreach that all of us collectively have in the cooperative development world. This year, we decided early the year, talking about what could we do more this year in terms of learning, we decided to start this series that we're calling Thematic Tuesday Talks, and this will take place every 6 to 8 weeks, more or less, and we'll focus on themes of common interest to the cooperative community. We actually welcome any ideas that you have or you like to see featured. Please do share with Georgia and the team so we can put them on the schedule. Today, our first Tuesday talk will focus on a very dearing, frankly, theme to all of us, which is co-op enabling environment. And this is of particularly importance, I would say, more than probably many other themes, because we see a direct correlation as cooperatives being able to thrive and an enabling and conducive cooperative enabling environment, particularly for cooperatives to succeed in the 21st century. And it's not just about the co-ops themselves, it's also about the entire ecosystem that goes into helping cooperatives. Today, in this next hour, we'll hear about global activity that is being implemented by co-ops for development that ICA does, the legal framework analysis, LFA, in close collaboration, which ICA is doing with its 4 regional offices in Africa, in Asia, and also in Latin America and Europe. This activity reaches about 75 countries. Jeff and John with ICDP will introduce us to the LFA. We'll also hear from Camilla Pinheiro, a colleague, our co-op development director, and she will share NCBA-CLUSA's experience in the area of enabling environment. Our aim with this session is to build on each other's experiences, so we really appreciate everybody participating and sharing your thoughts and experiences with the co-op enabling environment. We will again talk about the LFA of co-ops for development, Clarity, which is a tool that NCBA-CLUSA, OCDC, Paul is representing, and other US co-op development organizations with USAID funding helped to develop years ago. We're now actually going into what we call Clarity 2 to promote better enabling environment for co-ops in the world. There's a lot of work being done, but I think this collective discussion is going to be really good. So looking forward to it. And without further ado, let's discuss, and I hope you enjoy it. And thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. I will give now the floor to John, to my colleague John Emerson, in order to kickstart the presentation on the legal framework analysis. John, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Georgia. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Let me just go to here. Can everyone see my screen properly? Great, okay, cool. Good afternoon to everyone from Brussels, where I am. First of all, thank you for inviting us to present today, and thank you, Georgia, for the introduction. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is John Emerson, and I'm a research officer at Cooperative Europe. Today, I'm joined by my colleague Jeffrey Moxham, who is the ICA's research coordinator, and today we will be presenting our research activities under the ICA-EU Partnership with a focus on the legal framework analysis, or LFA, and its contributions to an enabling environment for cooperatives. So now to provide a quick recap, under the ICA-EU Partnership, there is a focus on knowledge building activities intended to strengthen the enabling environment for cooperatives. And from the beginning of the partnership, there was a needs analysis among members to identify priorities for our work. And a major priority identified by members was ensuring that cooperatives benefited from an adequate enabling environment. So as a result, the enabling environment is now a major policy priority of the ICA. From a legal perspective, the enabling environment means that cooperatives benefit from regulations which acknowledge their specificities and which ensure that they are treated no less favorably than other types of enterprise. So in short, a weak legal framework may harm cooperatives, whereas supportive regulation may actually encourage their development. And it's from this perspective that the LFA has emerged. So the first aim of the LFA is therefore to acquire general knowledge of the national legislation on cooperatives enforced in the countries represented by ICA members, as well as supranational cooperative law where relevant, some prominent examples being the European Union's 2003 regulation on the European Cooperative Society and the OHADA Treaty applicable in West Africa. So the second aim of the LFA is to evaluate national jurisdictions according to their enabling environment from the perspective of cooperatives and as judged by national experts for each territory. Finally, based on this evaluation, the third aim of the LFA is to provide recommendations for improving cooperative laws at the national level and also at both regional and global levels too. So moving on to the next slide, I can now just provide a quick recap on the methodology of the LFA for those of you who are not familiar with this. So firstly, to ensure the quality of reports is of a similar standard across different countries and that comparable information is collected, a methodology was established in collaboration with EURICSE, the European Research Institute for Cooperative and Social Enterprises based in Trento in Italy. So accordingly, the LFA involves firstly the selection of qualified national experts and regional legal experts on cooperative law. A harmonized questionnaire, which has been jointly defined and used by all ICA regions, is then distributed to the national legal experts in an effort to ensure comparability of information collected at the national level. So experts then complete the questionnaire and the research team working in the ICA and its regional offices provide feedback with the support of regional legal experts. ICA regional offices then share the questionnaire with ICA members who give their feedback on the legal framework of their country. So, and so this part of the process is, from our perspective, critical in order to ensure members are involved in this process. Finally, input provided by experts and members is compiled into country reports, which are published on the COPS for Dev online platform. I'll now quickly touch on the progress of the LFA. For those of you who've seen this slide before, you'll notice that the number has increased since our previous presentation. And as the research is ongoing, we would also encourage you to regularly check our online platform, www.copsfordev.coop, for new publications when they arise. As of today, you can find 68 country reports on our online platform, representing 62% of ICA member countries. And in addition to the report, we also compile a one-page highlights document showing some of the main takeaways for the reports, as well as country summaries on the web pages. There we go. Oh no, go back a bit, sorry. So over the past month, reports have been uploaded for countries including Bulgaria, India, and the United States. And progress is also being made to produce reports showing trends at the regional and global levels. So moving on to the next slide, we can now quickly look at the research outcomes of the LFA. So the LFA is firstly conceived as a longer-term monitoring tool with results presented in a harmonized way, which are easy to access and update through the online database for monitoring and possible updating when needed, which is especially important as far as legislation goes, because as we know, law is not static and is subject to amendment or reform. Furthermore, recommendations for improvements relative to the legal frameworks covered will be disseminated to a wide range of stakeholders within and outside the cooperative movement and used as a tool for advocacy. Meanwhile, facilitating comparison between national legal frameworks will help highlight best practices and their potential replication in other countries. Finally, the involvement of the cooperative member organizations in the process will empower them to highlight issues which they are facing and therefore recommend hopefully beneficial changes. Moving on, I can now talk to you a bit about the outputs of the LFA to this date, which have contributed to an enabling environment for cooperatives. These outputs are namely knowledge building, raising awareness, and advocacy work as well. So we can now turn to the first output, which is on knowledge building. So while the LFA is currently presented as reports relevant to each specific country, it's also showcased new insights on trends appearing across different countries because of the comparable information collected by the harmonized format of the questionnaire. So just as one example, last year, Jeffrey and I looked at already completed LFA reports where we identified 4 commonalities appearing across different countries in the LFA. In the opinion of the national experts, which affected the strength of the law. So these factors were, in short, whether the law was adequately enforced, whether cooperatives were treated as favorably as other enterprise models, the importance of governing cooperatives under a single law as opposed to a fragmented legal framework, as well as how up to date the law was. So as a result of identifying these trends, we were able to draft a research paper going into further detail on these 4 factors, and also recommend some general best practices for cooperative laws. Building on this wider analysis that a harmonized collection of information allows for, there is also preliminary work which is ongoing within the ICA, aimed at determining best practices for cooperative law in areas such as taxation and public procurement. Just as an additional point here, so we're conscious that not everyone is a legal specialist, and so the LFA is meant to be accessible to more general audiences too. So the way the information is presented from the writing of the national reports, for example, we aim to include practical examples of the impact of laws on national cooperative movements. Additionally, we also aim to ensure that each report is accompanied by a concise highlights page showing the main recommendations of the national expert on improving the cooperative law in that country. So yeah, moving on to the second output, this is raising awareness. So yeah, firstly, the results of the research are displayed on an online platform, which I've just touched on previously. And so aside from displaying the reports, this platform allows users to easily navigate between different countries on an interactive map, where you can easily compare the main takeaways of different reports, not only on cooperative law, but also statistics too. So the results of the LFA also provide tools for stakeholders, such as ILO, networks of cooperative lawyers, and also research institutes on questions around cooperative law. So for example, the paper on trends in the LFA that I just spoke about on the previous slide was published in the 3rd edition of the International Journal of Cooperative Law last year, and also presented to a network of cooperative lawyers for discussion. These trends were also presented during the ILO Quote 100 webinar at the end of 2020. So more generally, the LFA is also presented during ICA online events in order to communicate progress of outputs and new information from the LFA as this emerges. Finally, communication tools, including Twitter, ensure that new reports are publicized along with selected highlights and interesting facts from reports. Moving on, we can now touch on the third and final output from the LFA, which is advocacy. So at the level of the ICA membership, we hope that the LFA will be able to facilitate the advocacy efforts of our members by using the LFA to help the ICA respond to legal queries from members. At the national level, ICA has also been active with lawmakers. Our recent example from the end of last year was the support for the Japan Worker Cooperative Union's efforts to secure a new Worker Cooperatives Act, which was eventually adopted at the end of 2020. The LFA has finally facilitated advocacy efforts at the regional level. So as another example here, the ICA has been engaging extensively with the African Union's work on creating a new model law for cooperatives. So as we develop the LFA and use it as an information source, we also realize that the enabling environment is becoming key to everyday development issues outside of law. So with regard to the LFA, we're increasingly seeing that the legal framework are linked to labor rights for workers, for example. And so the LFA is therefore linked to development activities of members and more generally the Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030. So just for some concluding points, in terms of enabling environment, the LFA has greatly contributed to this, and we've come a long way since the beginning of the partnership 5 years ago. In short, we now have a knowledge base providing comparable information on cooperative law, allowing for best practices to be more easily identified than ever before. There have also been efforts to ensure that information gathered from this research is both easily accessible and also disseminated through webinars and communications channels. Finally, this work also serves as a tool for members to not only participate in discussions around the legal frameworks, but has also led to more exchanges between stakeholders on issues relating to development topics more generally. So yeah, just to conclude, I'd like to thank you for your attention today, and I would now like to give you the floor if you have any questions for Jeffrey or myself. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the presentation. Indeed, let's open the floor to all of you actually to ask, of course, any questions specifically regarding the presentation that John has just concluded. I think his last point that we are having here today, development practitioners, it is really key to throw you back the question on how do you experience, for example, in your everyday work, this kind of use of such tools like the legal framework analysis, or if you have any specific questions on the tool itself, happy to take any questions. I will get back to this in case you all feel timid and shy in order not to express yourselves yet. But please feel free also to address any questions also on the chat so we can pick it up from there. I don't see any hand raised. So John, you can relax for now, Jeff the same. And we will get back to the LFA and the tool that has been developed under the ICA-EU Partnership. And I will give the floor to Mrs. Pinheiro, Mrs. Camilla Pinheiro from NCBA CLUSA, to share with us a bit the experiences that NCBA is having around legal frameworks on their work on international development cooperation. Camilla, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect.
Good, good. So yes, I'm here representing NCBA CLUSA's work on what we are calling also the enabling environment, where we focus on having a legal and regulatory framework that reduces barriers for cooperative creation and development, and also set up, acknowledge the particularities of the cooperative model so that the cooperative model can flourish, no, and expand in the countries we work. So I'm gonna follow the guiding questions that were provided, where we first talk about the priorities of our organization. And I should say that advocacy, as Alex mentioned, is key part of NCBA CLUSA mission domestically, but internationally, we are also known for facilitating the update or reform of local cooperative legal frameworks. And this we always do responding to a demand from a main cooperative stakeholder in that country, no? And that's an important best practice to mention. What we do, I mentioned, is to basically to try to overcome help the cooperative stakeholders to identify the barriers, and they themselves decide what they want to do about it, and they have to achieve a consensus about what they want to do and how they want to do it, and we help facilitate that process. For that, we use a tool that Alex mentioned. It's called Clarity, which is the meaning of it was founded by the U.S. Overseas Cooperative Development Council, or OCDC. I believe we have Paul Hansen here with us today. And Clarity is the Cooperative Law and Regulation Initiative. And I can talk about more about Clarity. I understand I only have 5 minutes, but very shortly, Clarity is a tool that helps start the conversation, helps identify very easily, relatively easily, the main barriers, because it focuses on 12 key areas important for cooperative development, and kind of like analyzes these 12 areas based on 9 principles. 4 are internal for the cooperatives, needed for the cooperative development, and 5 are external, so what is needed outside the cooperative for them to develop. And it's very easy to then concentrate on key issues rather than trying to tackle all the issues at once, which is very overwhelming for people, no? So Clarity is a great tool to start the conversation, and it's also, because it's not just that tool, it's a toolkit. It is from that assessment all the way to the advocacy that needs to happen to be able to pass a law proposal that has been developed or co-created with the main cooperative stakeholders, so that it addresses all the different needs of the different sectors. And so I should say that in terms of the best practices that we have identified, as John mentioned, it's important to prevent legal dispersion. So it's very important to have one like cooperative law and accompanying general rules that accurately reflect the cooperative identity. Any cooperative legislation has to start from the understanding and the embracing of the cooperative identity, and recognizing the dual character of cooperatives as associations and businesses, and so that the unique characteristics and behaviors that are expected from this identity. And something important that we have encountered is the need for this legislation to allow for the creation of all the classes of cooperatives, because there are many barriers for worker cooperatives and multi-stakeholder cooperatives, because they are not considered when the legislation is designed. And also higher tier and cooperative integration bodies are very important to take into consideration. Of course, setting rules for the constitution and dissolution of cooperatives, for the due process, acknowledgement of the Cooperative Act. The relation among members has a different character, and so it should not be taxed. And there are many things that come out from the recognition of the Cooperative Act among members. And also the importance of indivisible reserves and measures to discourage the degeneration of cooperatives is something that needs to be paid attention to. And also the role of what we call the regulatory environment, those institutions that are going to be in charge of promoting and supervising cooperatives. Those are key issues to consider in a legislation. And there are many things that need to be improved in many places, because the cooperative laws in many countries are more than 40 years old, at least in Latin America. There are also new best practices that have been incorporated in more recent legislation, like around cooperative education, social responsibility, gender equality, diversity and inclusion. And so many legislations need to be brought up to speed to these developments in the cooperative sector. I think those are the main points that I wanted to share. I know I have 5 minutes, so I can go on, but I think that wasn't the idea.
Thank you very much, Camilla. Thanks a lot for sharing with us your experience. Definitely, I can give you back the floor if our audience remains silent till the end of this session. Any kind of, I see also that Mr. Paul Hazen from OCDC has shared already the link for Clarity, which is another tool that Camilla has mentioned and has been developed by OCDC with the support of all its members working on international cooperative development as well. So are there any questions regarding maybe this second tool or the efforts that NCBA in cooperation with OCDC has put in place around legal frameworks and an enabling environment for cooperatives? Is there any colleague that would like to address a question or share her experience on behalf of their organization?
Yes, I would like to ask something, Georgia.
Please, Paola, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, thanks a lot. It's all very interesting. And I have a question for Camilla, which is, I was already on the site, I was checking what you're doing, etc. And I was wondering, because we had some requests from countries where we work. We are a little NGO, and we work aside from the Italian cooperative movement, but we work in different countries in the world. And it is often that our partners, local partners, ask if we can help them to improve or to improve the system that they have, the legal framework in which they have to live. Because as you know, it's not as developed as we have a very good system in Italy, for example. So if I understand well, this clarity tool can help them. I mean, is a methodology that we can share with them. We can guide them into using it. We can go through you and ask you to be partner in a project, for example, if we want to develop this. Is this the thing? Did I got it?
Yes. Can I answer now, Georgia, or should I wait?
Yeah. Please go ahead, Camilla.
Okay. Yes, Paola, very much possible. We actually have been approached by other organizations who learn about our work in supporting local cooperative stakeholders reform and update their legal framework. So we have done this in the past, and I didn't mention that we have done this recently in 7 countries in Latin America and Africa, and yes, I think it's a very useful tool because it helps. It can be like a very overwhelming process, but the Clarity is a toolkit that has kind of like everything you need to guide you through the process from the very start when you assess the current legislation to the advocacy that needs to happen in order to pass the law proposal. And as Alex mentioned too, we are in the process of developing understanding the basis for the theoretical and practical foundations to update the tool. So we are, it's a bit unfortunate that this webinar didn't happen a couple of weeks before, because we were just closing the deadline for consultants to apply to be part of a working group that is going to identify these foundations to update the Clarity, so that we can have Clarity 2.0 that takes into consideration, as I mentioned, all the new best practices that have been identified to support the expansion of cooperatives, no, that need to be considered in the legislation. And so the tool is totally available. If you go to the website that Paul mentioned, you can see there, you can access the toolkit, and you can also, there are, I think, 5 publications about the different kind of like stages in which Clarity can be used, all the way to advocacy. So yeah, I think I answered your question. If not, please let me.
I just put that because you mentioned Latin America and Africa. What about Asia? You do not have experience there? Is there, for example, Mediterranean countries, or I don't know, for example?
Yes. We were approached to support in Tunisia, but it didn't materialize. But we do extensive work in Southeast Asia. So So it's not that we don't have experience in that region, but not recently.
Thank you. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Paula, for the question. Anyone else that would like to address a question? Speak her mind out. I see a question already on the chat by Santosh, but I'm not really sure, Santosh, if you have back like your audio, maybe you would like to address it? Probably no. Okay, so I will address the question that I suppose first I will address it maybe to Camilla, but also to the whole audience. So basically, Santos is asking, how do the experts see the relationship between the state and cooperatives, and trends, if any, based on your work on cooperative legal frameworks?
Yes.
Go ahead, Camilla.
Is that, oh, sorry, was that for me or should I let John? Maybe John, do you want to answer first and then I?
I was going to give you the floor first.
Yeah, I think that it fits more like to the cooperative development experts. So please take the floor, Camilla. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. You can go first.
No, this is something that has also evolved over the last 2-3 decades, and Clarity was put together 15 years ago. So that's an aspect in which we feel that we need to take a look at Clarity under this new understanding of the role that the relation that you can establish between the cooperative sector and the public institutions. And this is important because in many countries, the institution that promotes cooperative is a para-state, no, between the cooperative sector and the state. And this is because the state, no, the government, recognizes the advantages of cooperatives to promote development goals like poverty eradication, inequality, democracy. And so the state, as indicated by the ILO recommendation number 35, no, that we all know, encourages the state to support and promote cooperatives, no? And so we think that it's not like a suit that fits all the countries, but there are some countries in which there can be an harmonious relationship between state and the cooperative sector for the development of cooperatives and them tackling together these social and kind of the development goals, no? So yeah, there is not like a one solution. It's always have to be adaptive to each specific context, no, of the countries.
Perfect. Thank you, Camilla. Maybe I go back to my colleagues, John or Jeff. Maybe you would like to complement with something.
I can just say a couple of words and then I might give the floor to Jeff. So, I mean, just from the LFA, like we often see like there's a sort of balance between like state support for cooperatives and like interference in their autonomy. So just for one example, like Jordan, for example, where you have the cooperative, there's basically a state body which has like a lot more control over cooperatives than you would see, for example, maybe in a non-state actor. Sometimes cooperatives are also affected by regulation and that they're excluded from operating in certain sectors. For example, issuing financial instruments, operating as banks. And so I think it's also important to remember that cooperatives don't really operate in isolation. They can't really operate in isolation completely from other types of legislation either. So It's a really good question. I wonder if Jeff might have a couple of more thoughts on this.
Jeff, would you like to add something?
Yeah, thanks very much. I concur with very much what's been said. I think one region where we've noticed this very much is in the region of Africa. I think specifically this is where the relation between the state and the cooperatives or the cooperative movement themselves comes up perhaps the most often. But it is heavily dependent, I think, also on the historical context itself. And I think another issue which comes up a lot with this is also the knowledge of the state, where it does impose necessarily some restrictions, or perhaps, for example, when you look at audit, the question of having people who are qualified, who understand also the cooperative model itself, in order to regulate effectively. No, I mean, I think in this, perhaps the UK is one good example where the Financial Conduct Authority, within which cooperatives are regulated, doesn't have any specialists who work on cooperatives. So there you see, okay, it's much harder to convince them of the unique added value of the model. So I think education is also one of the important themes there.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. I see also that on the chat we have Mr. Juan Carlos Marenco Batres. I will give it a try. I don't know, Mr. Marenco Batres, would you like to share with us your thoughts, or I can also read your comment from the chat, please?
Oh, I have a lot to say there.
Don't say everything. But please share your thoughts.
If I have time. This is a field perspective. We have been applying clarity here in Guatemala. We have evaluated the policy, and according to 12 key areas that OCDC defined as priorities. And the next steps are the important things that we have found. First of all, to be aware of the sector position. In the case of Guatemala, some have received well the proposal to reforms for changes. Others, and let's be aware of this, others prefer the status quo. They have reached comfortable positions in the sector, comfortable positions in policy, and you have to deal with that. We have to also consult directly to the base of the co-ops to provide legal foundations and arguments from the users' perspectives. We have to involve also the institutions. In the case of Guatemala, we have an institution, we have the case in Guatemala of, sorry for that. We have the case in Guatemala that we have a strong institution, well, a weak institutionality to support the cooperatives, but at least we have one. Other countries don't. We have INACOP, INGECOP, and some other ministerial actions. We also, sorry for this also, we also have to link all of our activities with the lawmakers, with the decision makers. That's the National Congress. We have promoted the installation of a technical table at the Cooperatives and NGOs Commission here in the National Congress. We promote also this transparency. Of course, we find different sectoral interests that are valid, of course are valid, but they create some kind of fear and conflict. We have to promote these sectoral dialogues to look forward the changes. We have a 42 years old here law in Guatemala, and communication. But regarding, I think the strongest, or the greatest needs, I think is not just the case for Guatemala, but it's data. We lack of data. We lack reliable data on the weight of co-ops in the economy, its contribution, its rurality, all the social stuff, and that. So we are like, we don't have any weapons to promote the cooperative sector. So I think that we must promote in all countries to gather data on the cooperative sector contribution to the national economy, to the formalization of the labor, to environmental sector and everything. I don't know if I have more time, but a proper representation of the cooperative sector is also needed. In the case of Guatemala, the SACOS cooperatives manage a big chunk of the economy, of the savings economy, but they don't have a seat in the decision-making policy tables. So we must also promote that in the law, in the changes, in the reforms. We also have to integrate new social dynamics. We have, in the case of Guatemala, migration, money laundering policies, and we have to get involved into this, make the link between these social dynamics and the cooperative sector development in the long term. How can the cooperative sector contribute to reduce those I call them viruses, migration and money laundering. And additionally, just to end up,
yeah, please, Juan Carlos, if you can shorten it up a little bit, just to give the floor.
Women's generational coupling, integrate women contribution correctly to the co-op development, and this generational coupling. That's it.
Thank you very much for all these kind of insights. I will, I see that the time is running, but and I have already in my list to give the floor Mr. Muridor, Virginia, and I do have also a question from a colleague from Canada. But if, with your permission, we would like also to hear first, because we have prescribed, let's say, for this discussion, also another colleague from this time from Bulgaria, Mr. Krasimir Ignatov or Ignatov. I'm really sorry for the pronunciation. If we can hear you already, Mr. Ignatov, and hear to your thoughts, then I will pass the floor, of course, to the rest of the colleagues. And just to also another point, because I see that there is a lot of interest also in the discussion, which is amazing, and I see the chat on fire, I would say. Maybe we will have the opportunity, as this is a topic of great interest also for all the organizations within the ICADP, to maybe host another Enabling Environment Volume 2. So the floor is yours, Mr. Ignatov. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're hearing me. Something happened with my camera, but I can continue only with my voice. My name is, I'll present myself shortly. My name is Krasimir Ignatov, and I'm Director General of the International Affairs Department of CCU. Actually, my colleague, Mrs. Teodora Kuzmanova, which is not here, she was busy with another meeting and could not finish on time, is the national expert which take a part of the project, and she's also a Director General of the Legal Department of CCU. I would like to say that on behalf of CCU and her, I would like briefly to express our gratitude for the opportunity to participate in this project launched by the ICA and the Regional Office Cooperative Europe. We believe that the project is important because it can identify the strengths of the cooperative laws in the various national legislations, as well as to exchange some good practices, which we already notice in the platform. The role of the cooperative law is to shape and to protect the cooperative model defined by the internationally recognized cooperative principles, and to protect the cooperative and the public, of course, the cooperators and the public. In our country, I'm aiming to include the cooperative principles and values in our cooperative law, because we have a separate cooperative law, and in order to have them written and to have them like in the statutes like ICA and Cooperative Europe. One of the serious problems is the increasingly frequent depersonalization of the cooperatives and their equating with other capital companies. For example, through the analysis of the cooperative legislation, the distinctive characteristics of the cooperative organization as well. In Bulgaria, this division is achieved through a special law which we have and regulates the cooperative movement, the law of cooperatives, it's say. It specifies the definition of a cooperative, its structure, the power of its bodies too. In view of the above, at the present, there are no real obstacles to the establishment, operation, and development of the cooperatives. However, this is not the case with the promotion of the cooperatives, although the cooperative law states that the state can support and encourage the cooperative organizations. In practice, no specific mechanism are provided to this. The focus of cooperatives on meeting the needs of the member cooperatives rather than on the accumulation. It's rather not the accumulation of profit puts the cooperative at disadvantage compared to the other companies. So we believe that the cooperative should be provided with certain financial incentives and other mechanisms for support, such as reimbursement of the tax relief for investments and financing of social activities for cooperatives, facilitating the conditions for applying for the implement of the public procurement, for example, exemption of the cooperatives from the obligation to pay more state's fees. Next, it is necessary to create specific provision to guarantee the cooperative ownership and limit the possibility of disposing of it without the concerns of the General Assembly. So, as well as to regulate the transfer of the ownership upon termination of the cooperative to the regional and national cooperative union. Carrying out this project, we certainly help to outline the challenges and difficulties facing the cooperative movement today, and we will identify good practices through which they can be overcome for sure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Krasimir, for sharing your experience and also what is the added value actually of all this work that is going on. I will pass directly because the clock is ticking, and I will give directly the floor to Muli. Muli, please stay brief. So I have like two more on board so everyone can talk.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Georgia and Jeffrey and John, for the good work that you are doing. Identify good practice. It is a major task of our co-ops all over the world. In Israel, we have a law that was created in 1932. And we have to make a new law, and we have a lot of questions, and we use the ICA experience, for example, in the credit union and the American and Canadian experience when we wanted to found and create a new credit union, and they gave us a very good help by bringing their regulation to us. Our government doesn't believe that cooperative is a valuable kind of organization, and they in fact had laws against creating credit unions. So in the way that we show them that in the big United States there are credit unions, cooperative credit unions, it helped us a lot in finding the way to create new credit union in Israel. So this can be very, very good tool. The knowledge sharing is very important, and we should find a way how to send answer questions to a knowledge center that can give us also answers.
Thank you, Muli. Thanks a lot. Point taken. I think that it is a very good idea. And also, as you said, that's why also we are trying to build on knowledge sharing within the ICADP more and more. I will maybe pass to Mrs. Chiang Wang. Would you like to address your question, please? Or you would like me to take it from the...
Sure. Thank you, Georgia. My name is Chiang Wang. I'm from Canada, Co-op Development Foundation of Canada. So my question is about informal institution, because when it's come to the enabling environment, one thing is the formal institution, like legal framework we are talking about. Another thing is the informal institution. Sometimes in some countries, the law is perfect, but in the field, you have a lot of problems. Sometimes the law is rigid, but people have some ways to walk around. So my question is, does this tool, or do you know, is there any tool that consider the informal institution that can, support or, challenge the development of cooperatives? Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for this interesting question. I think that I will drop it back to the colleagues that they are shared their knowledge around tools. I don't know who would like to pick this challenging question. Anyone? Even from the audience, if someone knows. No?
I can just say, maybe to break the ice,
yes,
that because it's true that many times the state or specific institutions are assigned the task. No, there are like at least 3 fundamental tasks. You need promotion, you need supervision, because once you set up policies that promote cooperatives and provide preferential treatment like tax exemptions, priority in state procurement, etc., etc., if you don't have effective supervision, then you have many fake cooperatives, right? And so you need to, these 2 tasks at least need to be assigned to some entity, and in countries where there are no institutions that fulfill these tasks, the cooperative sector itself takes them on. A good example is Germany, and somehow in some Latin American countries, like where the institutions are not strong, the cooperative integration bodies try to do it themselves, but it's hard to find developing countries that can follow the German model. So that's why we think that it's important to partner with the state in order to do this more effectively in developing countries. And I take the note that has been raised by our colleague Lydia from Kenya, where it's true that in Africa it's very challenging to do that without the state overstepping and intervening in the cooperative. But there are ways to prevent that from happening too.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Camilla. And thank you, Juan, for your question, the challenging question. Indeed. I will pass as a last example and sharing experience. I would like to give the floor also to Virginia, that has expressed her willingness to share with us what she has under her toolbox or in her experience to share with all of us. Please, Virginia, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks, Georgia. I'll just speak very quickly. It touches on Camilla's points and Santosha's question, and also what John and Jeffrey were talking about, and Lydia's comments. You know, a lot of where we've implemented Clarity is in Africa, where we see a lot of, state incursion and control over cooperatives. And in Tanzania recently, we've just had this remarkable experience of an international cooperative law specialist, Willie Tujude, work hand in hand with a cooperative lawyer in Tanzania in the Tanzanian Commission for Cooperative Development, and they did the clarity analysis together. And you know, to some of the points that were already raised about the importance of
Sorry, Virginia, I cannot hear you for some reason. Yep.
Oh, I think my mouse must have been acting up. Sorry. Did you miss most of that?
Missed no, we missed the last part.
Okay. So
yeah.
I was just saying that, you know, the importance of these tools for education, right? So the example in Tanzania being that there is still so much state incursion into cooperative affairs, you know, a lot of history, and there's a lot of reasons behind that, right? But using clarity as a tool to educate those in the different ministries working with cooperatives and everything. And because the analysis was done hand in hand with somebody in the Cooperative Development Commission, you know, he's been able to become a champion and has been able to use this language that really helps to educate. And we are in fact seeing a mindset shift in a lot of these officials' understanding of cooperatives as businesses, right? For so long they've seen it as, oh, you have to protect these poor farmers from, you know, we have to protect them. And so, you know, having to approve, you know, annual budgets and all of these things that just make it so cumbersome for cooperatives, and seeing this mindset shift of cooperatives being professional businesses, and, you know, the methodology, right, of working with external experts, but also in-country experts, local organizations that promote cooperatives, right? This whole participatory, multi-stakeholder process that really helps to educate everyone and get everyone on the same page has been really, really helpful. And they're making a lot of changes in the law that, because of COVID, you know, the proposal's just kind of been sitting there for a while, but just that it's a great example we have of how all of these things are starting to come together through, you know, not just the tool, right, but the methodology and the process of how you work with stakeholders to dissect the law and understand the things in it that are disabling for cooperatives. And I'll stop there because I know we're over time already.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Virginia. On this, maybe just a last point. I don't see anyone raising his or her hand. I know we are 5 minutes past, so if someone wants to make any last comment or would like to drop something on the chat, please go ahead.
Jeff wanted to say something.
Jeff?
Yeah, I was just picking up on
sure, please go ahead.
Chiang Wang was raising actually about the kind of informal framework, and I agree absolutely with what Camilla said in terms of like the importance of supervision and enforcement. And I think one of the things we looked at already, which is something that I think we would like to do also in the future, is to look at not just what's within the formal cooperative law, but also what the bylaws leave or the statutes leave to be determined, because that is one area where there can be a huge diversity in terms of like a cooperative's adherence to the principles or how they are actually behaving or interacting on the ground. So this is just one reflection that I would have added to this point. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very, very much. And my apologies, I couldn't see your raised hand apparently. So thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks for your presence. I will have to close the meeting of today here. Thanks a lot for the engaging discussion, but also for sharing all these kind of experiences that you are all having from the field. As we said in the beginning, it is an activity in building trust, but also sharing knowledge and best practices throughout the ICDP community network or platform, you name it as you please. I will still maybe a point of what Virginia mentioned, that it is very, very important to put the work of our network into interaction, let's say, with other kind of stakeholders, that they are important to facilitate this kind of enabling environment at country level, where actually we are implementing our international cooperative development, and we are supporting from primary co-ops to federations. And on this, thanks very, very much even more to the speakers of today. Tools is only a niche of enabling environment. We will have many more to discuss. And wishing you a very good day, night, and evening in many of the countries. Have a very good day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.